The younger generations, millennial and Gen Z, they share everything. They talk about salaries. They talk about, decisions that get made they don't agree with. They talk about what they don't value and what they do value in their company. And they're talking about it everywhere. They're not just talking about it with their friends. They're talking about it incredibly publicly. And that all ties back to your brand.
Hey everyone, welcome to Where Brands Get Their Edge, sponsored by Nickel Bronx. If you're in marketing, we've got the tools. If you're a founder, we've got the truth. Today we have the VP of People at Vidyard, Sarika, joining us, and we're going to discuss AI and why it apparently doesn't want to get shut down. What's up, Amanda?
What's up, Borzou? Last week of school for my
that's exciting.
kids, so
That
that's
is not true for us. We have several weeks
mine.
left. I thought they were trying to keep you guys there for the summer.
That's why they start early. They start like immediately in August to get everybody back to make sure that the economy stays strong. So otherwise, nobody would ever be here.
I think we both have, but I've leaned very hard into this AI future that we're all very excited about. I can't wait for my Tesla robot to come over and do my laundry and walk my dog, mostly walk my dog. But we're also seeing signs of our Terminator style future, or Matrix, or whatever your worst case scenario for the robots taking over the world is. Have you seen these AI models that refuse to shut down?
You're the one that brought my attention to this, and it sounds really scary.
It's like kind of crazy. I don't know which one is worse. OpenAI has a new model that was caught sabotaging its own code so the engineers would not be able to shut it down. And part of me is like super proud about this, of them, I guess. But also, like, how far are we from saying AI is sentient? And like, what's going to happen when it gets to a place where we can't shut it down?
It's like we all knew this was going to happen. It's just everything in the whole entire world just is happening faster than I thought ever. So it's just like we know it's coming, but we think we have time, and then the time is now, and it's just everything is going so quickly. My brain can't.
It also
keep up.
feels very aggressive to me. And did you see Anthropic's new model? And like, it's a little unclear. Like, maybe this was a test to see if it would do something like this, but it
was during the testing phase, apparently.
But it was like real. Like, they hadn't released it publicly, but it was a real model, right?
Well, and they put it through scenarios. So I think that I don't think the AI knew it was like a test. Yeah, and then it just, yeah, you say what it did, because this is crazy and almost like
I'm going to read it because it says researchers say Claude 4 Opus can conceal intentions and take actions to preserve its own existence. And the craziest thing is it threatened to blackmail engineers who are having an affair. So this wasn't.
It was one engineer. It like knew about one engineer's affair.
But it's like, and now OpenAI wants to give us an AI necklace to wear all the time to track everything we do always, so we don't have to like remember to ask it and prompt it for things. And this is like a very aggressive level of self-preservation.
Yeah, it said that the Claude 4 model, that they did a bunch of different scenarios, and it tried to sabotage things in 84% of the scenarios. And then I asked AI, so I was like, hey, did this really happen? Because I wanted to see what it said. And they were like, yes, this really happened, but don't worry, it's just a red flag. It's not doomsday or anything. And then I was like, are you just saying this because you're AI? And they're like, fair question. And then so it's a weird, I don't even know what to think, except it's scary.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's going way faster than we've expected. And I'm still unpacking these quantum processors that are coming out and the way we're doing quantum data. And I've read it as well as I can. And I mean, it really is like fifth dimension time travel, like crazy physics, like stuff that was theoretical, what feels like 5 minutes ago, that we're now like playing God with. And I feel like there's like a 20% chance this all gets us to like this human utopia where everything's amazing all the time. But I feel like it's a 20% chance. Yeah.
20%?
Well, because I think 40% of it is the AI goes rogue and destroys us all. But the other 40% is someone's in control of the AI, right? It's not like we don't have the know-how or resources to take care of people or distribute food or feed everyone now, right? But people just, it's not a priority.
Right.
And the people, even if people stay in charge of the AI, like, what are we going to do to make that a priority?
I really just think that the percentage has to be lower just because literally, like, I'm talking about not being able to keep up with the pace because things are moving too quickly. That's literally what's happening. Our human brains cannot keep up with this pace. We cannot adjust to this level of evolution.
And this
that
is all happening while I'm
evident.
still doing my own laundry. It hasn't even made my manual labor.
I know. That's what like it's really focusing on the wrong
It's
things.
like my car can drive itself. It can help me write nicer emails, and that's about it. Like,
Yeah, manual labor.
Yeah.
That's where we need to go with it. Except for then you get the actual robots, and then that's when they Terminator you.
yeah.
So
Have you seen oh my God, what's that movie? Meet the Mitchells.
oh yeah. Wait, no.
Mitchell's versus
Mitchell's
the
versus the
Machines.
Machine.
That's my fantasy end of day scenario.
My kids are really into that movie. Like it's one of those movies that they've seen like a billion times. So maybe.
All right, and now I'd like to welcome our guest, Sarika Lamont, the VP of People at Vidyard, who needs to turn on her camera and mic. She wants to participate. Oh, no, I feel so rejected.
Should we like just keep talking and pretend? Oh, there she is. So it's like,
I'm so sorry, y'all. That call took way longer than I anticipated. My apologies.
I can't decide if I'm kidding or not, but you want to talk about it?
Do you want to talk about me?
Like whatever
were
was
there any
going on.
lessons?
Oh, no.
I didn't think so.
It's not one of those things I want to talk about. But it's like my day job. But being doing podcasts and webinars is like my side job, I guess. This was
So
just
we have a very attuned, empathetic HR person at Nickel Bronx.
Do you?
Is
Is it you?
And no one thinks it's a good idea.
I might have to agree with that.
Do you do contract work? Can we just have everyone email you when they get upset with me? Because right now Amanda's handling the mid.
Totally
If
do
he
that.
has a problem with him, then I handle it.
I mean, you could totally do that. I would be super
I feel like
happy
you would
for
actually
that.
love it. You would get more. You would get.
I mean, I don't know, man. People are a little unhinged these days, guys. It's like
These days,
like at work. I mean, I feel like this year has been something special. I keep waiting for it to sort of stop, but it's not. And then it's like not even just in my professional world, it's my personal life too. With way more access and connectivity than ever before. So everything's like much more that's probably what it is. Everything's much more in your face and accessible than it was in the 20s.
I think I've told you
30s.
guys this before in separate contexts, but like the more I meet people and the more I'm like, oh my God, am I one of like the normal ones? Like how terrible.
No, you're not.
Right?
No.
I was like, he's asking
Well,
for it.
it's a horrifying idea if I'm one of the more stable
You
people out there.
I do sometimes think that might be true, and that really scares me.
That Borzou is one of the normal people.
Yeah. I have those thoughts sometimes, and then I'm like really scared about that.
Compared to cheer moms.
Yeah.
Guys, whoo,
Yeah.
whoo. That's something else.
We should get into.
Let's get into it. I know, because you have a hard stop, and again, apologies for being this late.
Well, we wanted to have you on because we want to talk a lot about the intersection of branding and HR. We feel that culture, HR is part of your brand and an important piece of it. And it helps kind of like outwardly with recruiting and things like that as well. And so you want to open with just kind of like your thoughts on that and maybe how Vidyard is doing it. And it's like an important part of what you do everywhere you go.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, given what you both do at Nickel Bronx, that you also understand how HR and culture are really at the intersection of that, because you'd be surprised at how many people don't actually believe that it has that much impact on their brand outwardly or inwardly, which is just crazy to me. But I definitely subscribe to that logic, because especially now, like there's, like I said, there's so much access. There's so many ways to communicate. There's so many ways to connect. People are connecting, not as much even in person anymore. They're connecting so much more on like the LinkedIn's and now TikTok, et cetera. And this is when you think about like that world of work right now, it's such a hot topic. And this is what people are talking about. This is what employees are talking about with each other. This is what they're sharing with each other. The younger generations, we have 5 generations in the workplace right now. And while like your high, baby boomers, et cetera, maybe they didn't talk as much because that's like not really like a sign of their times. The younger generations, millennial and Gen Z, they share everything. They talk about salaries. They talk about, decisions that get made they don't agree with. They talk about what they don't value and what they do value in their company. And they're talking about it everywhere. They're not just talking about it with their friends. They're talking about it incredibly publicly. And that all ties back to your brand. And when you do it well, it is amazing. And I think there's a lot that my talent acquisition team in particular does really well in terms of like, obviously they're the ones engaging with people that are interested in coming to our organization. And so they're the first face of like Vidyard that they see. And I get a lot of really positive praise about my talent acquisition team. And I'm saying that even from people who don't make it through our interview process, will find me on LinkedIn and tell me that was the most incredible way to be rejected by a job. Human, like they reached out to me, they gave me feedback, and then the follow-up was like, here's how to use our Vidyard product for 3 months for free. Here's how you use it in your job search. If you're looking for remote jobs, here's where you go. Here's some links. If you're like, it's a really human way. Even though we also do it in an automated way, we'll do it through the power of video, but it's a very human way of unfortunately having to reject people because you might not have the skills that we need at this point in time. But that says a lot about our brand. And that's what goes out. That's what people talk about. And I get a lot of people reaching out to me, and I get a lot of people that swing back that are like, I've been applying here for 3 years and I finally got a job because it like really landed with my skill set, or I worked on these things because your recruiter or your hiring manager gave me feedback on the set of skills that I didn't have. That is branding. That is everything. And that doesn't take that much time or money. It doesn't have to be so involved. I think that's what everybody thinks of, like your brand. Oh my God, I got to spend so much money at Nickel Bronx to get this brand, but like that's only a part of it. The rest of it is your people.
I don't know about you, Amanda. I've never heard of that level of like rejection process before. How uncommon is that? Is this something like
it is actually, yeah. It's sad to say, I don't think that it is as common as you would think, because when you think about
I
how to
expected
actually
you to say it's very uncommon. Yeah.
Okay, well then that's sad because it's not that hard. But I guess my point is it's not that hard to do. Right? It's just you need people willing to take an empathetic look at your process and really think about the human in the loop. And also because people are saying, oh, but you did it. Oh, it must have not gone well because you did it automated. You use like even like a stock avatar, right? At Vidyard, we're a video-based company primarily in like go-to-market for sales, marketing, outreach, et cetera. And we've since launched our AI avatars product, which allows us to like, I can train a video in 30 seconds and it will be my avatar and it'll capture my mannerisms and everything. And I can just give it a script and it'll record it and it'll be me. It just won't be me having recorded it live, but I've given like my approval to my likeness for this avatar to be used. Even with us using stock avatars, right? Like not even like anybody in my organization, and giving that type of feedback, like this is what you do in your job search. You're talking about using, everyone's like, oh my God, AI is taking the human out of everything. Not necessarily. And it's not necessarily taking the connectivity out. It's allowing me to actually connect with people on a very different level and still be human in the process of leveraging technology and automation. Everyone's looking at it so myopically rather than being a little bit more creative. And I think part of that is also people don't want to, unfortunately, I think this is a problem in HR. I can speak for this industry that I'm in, and I think there's a lot of HR leaders who are not willing to think creatively and who are not willing to think empathetically and like or who know how to be creative about like, well, this is the way it's always been done. Like, this is just how HR is done. I'm like, who the hell says that that's the way HR is done? I'm not even HR hasn't even been my background. Borzou, I've been everywhere. I've worked at Philip Morris. I've sold cigarettes. I've sold torpedoes to foreign countries. I've been in management consulting. Like, I've done all sorts of stuff. And I accidentally fell into HR only because I was in a company that scaled really quickly and I saw gaps and I'm like, we could do this so much better. Like, I'm on the business side of things and like, this is garbage. Like, you should be connecting with the business. You should understand what we're trying to sell. We're trying to bring people in, and our service is people, because at the time I worked in management consulting, and that's what you're selling to the federal government. Like, it's not that hard, guys. Why are we making this so much more complex? That's how it happened, because I was unwilling to look at things this traditional way that they were taught and by their SHRM certification. I don't have a single HR certification. I don't believe in them. I think they're garbage. I think they pigeonhole. I think they pigeonhole us into a very myopic way of thinking about people in HR. And that is not what the world is anymore. It is so much more complex. And you add in all this new technology and innovation, and you're talking about people. Okay, you're talking about people who have experiences and different backgrounds. And like, I don't give a shit about what your certification told me it should be. And that's been the same certification for 30 years. That's not where the world of work is anymore. And by the way, I'm not an HR leader that's trying to do things that everybody else has done.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it differently. And that is the brand. That is our brand. We're a technology company. We're an AI technology company. If I'm going to do things a way that's always been done in a playbook, I am not. If you're talking about brand and identity, I am actually not living our brand and identity in the way that I exist within the walls of our organization and then outside publicly and how I talk on these podcasts. Everyone thinks oh my God, you're so crazy, you're so out there. It's not that out there.
But
Like,
also,
guys, wake up.
But also,
I mean, I would just say I'm animated.
Well, I love this actually. And I mean, you are very different from anybody that I know in HR. It actually reminds me of something. My father-in-law is an engineer, and he used to work for Ethicon at Johnson & Johnson Company. And he used to always say, HR is neither human nor resources. And like, it's pretty similar to what you're saying now, just like what people expect from HR. So with that, like, people often see HR as the bad guy responsible for enforcing like unpopular policies or delivering bad news. How do you balance the needs of the business with empathy for employees in those types of situations?
Look, I think that is what I'm good at, because I came from the business side. So I have worked with customers and clients. I've scaled businesses. And so everything I saw was first from like more of a business lens. And I think that was important, because I think that's where old school HR folks get it wrong, is that they think very myopically and very transactionally about people, and it's very independent of what is going on in the business. And that is like just not where we are anymore. And I think that is that's a big change and transition you're continually seeing in the HR space. I don't even call it HR. I call it people and culture in my own business. Like, because I don't want to be associated with what was, when people say HR, I think like the old school way, not the new school way of thinking, and like this intersection, exactly what you're saying, of people and business. I will say, in the pandemic, I think, and as everything in the economy, everything's a pendulum. And right now the pendulum has swung back in the favor of the employer. But during the pandemic, and even a little bit after the pandemic, it was very much more the employees held the purse strings. They had the control, right? You started seeing they just made I think businesses made a lot of bad decisions because they felt like they had to. They gave these like exorbitant salaries to engineers and a bunch of, at a certain point, I said it, that is not scalable. That is not going to be, no one's going to be able to sustain that on the other side of the pandemic when the economy does recover. And like, no one's going to be able to afford doing that. Startups can't afford, $300,000 salaries for engineers. Like, they can't afford that. And so eventually the pendulum swung the other way. And I say this because there's a balance to strike either way. You can't go all the way. At the end of the day, we are still a for-profit organization. It's capitalism. I didn't create it. It's the world we live in. It's capitalism, baby. That's where we are. I hate it sometimes too, but there's a lot that it gives to organizations, right? And so what I'm saying is, I want to always be empathetic, but I also always want to be very clear and honest and transparent about the business side of things. I can't give everybody everything, especially now when you have 5 generations in the workplace, which in marketing terms, you have all different personas, and they all want something completely different. And I can't afford that. But I'm honest about that. And I'm clear about, I'm empathetic where it makes sense. I treat people like individuals. I treat people like they have their own life experiences. But I'm also going to treat you like an adult, because that's what you are. And so when you ask me why I can't have a $20,000 salary increase because the same job at Google makes $20,000 more, this is where I'm going to educate you about compensation. I'm going to educate you that we are a startup versus a FAANG company that has deep pockets and is public and has all. We are not those. But what I will tell you is, It has taken me some time, and it's hard to do it remotely. It was a lot easier to build this kind of relationship when you're in person. But my brand is I am a people first leader, but I care about the business, and I care about the business because I want money to reinvest back into you all as people.
And
That's my
as much
brand.
as much as I agree with everything you said, I think I think you can align those interests, right? I think the idea that the people in the
100%.
business are at odds all the time is if that's the way it feels and that's the way it's operated in, I feel like that's a culture issue, right? And if they're at odds all the time, right?
Well, she's saying it's an HR issue. She's saying it's the old school way of doing HR and how the way she does things is with a different
Well, no,
perspective.
I'm not
Well,
disagreeing with anything you said. I'm just saying I think there's also a way to align everyone's interests, right? Like can't be based on,
there
yeah. I feel
absolutely
like it doesn't
is.
have to be
But
combative all
that
the time.
takes But
Yeah.
that, no, absolutely. And I wouldn't say that, you could ask people inside my own organization when we've had to make tough decisions in the past. We've had to do layoffs in our organization, not unlike a lot of other companies or tech companies. But one thing many of those folks that have been impacted have said is like, this is the literal most human way I could imagine being laid off. And like, because my whole thing is, yes, there's complete, you can find alignment, but you can't find it if you're not
Yeah.
willing to be honest and
Yeah.
transparent
And
about
I'm
the
not disagreeing with
business.
you. You can't give everyone everything. Obviously, that's
You
impossible.
can't,
That's
I think
impossible.
that's my whole
100%
thing. It's
agree
like
with that. Yeah.
you can find middle ground. I think what happened though, and from the pandemic era and like tech and their, until the bubble burst, was companies were giving a lot to employees and probably more than they realized that they could sustain. It solved a in that moment problem, but they didn't think
Well,
about what the long term,
and it sets
what
the
the long
precedent.
term. It set a precedence,
Yeah.
exactly, and then that you can't afford. But
Right.
my point is when you have the wrong HR leader sitting in that seat being like, yeah, let's just do that because you're just worried about retention in the now, you're not thinking like 3 steps ahead. Well, if I do this, hold on a second, I'm going to pay these people $300,000. I, I only have so much money that I can invest in payroll, right? Given the size of, and that's not because I'm just trying to be an asshole. That's because of the size of organization that we are. There's money coming in and money coming out. There's only so much that I can invest. And I'm not just investing in one person's salary. That's taking away from my ability to invest in a lot of people programming for the
Yeah.
broader business as a whole. And so that's what I mean when I say like, you can't give in to everything. And what I have seen and heard is people have misused this notion of what empathy is. Empathy is not give everybody everything that they ask for. That is not what that is, right? Empathy is being able to see people, like give people a voice, to see people from their own experiences and to like understand their experiences and in some ways meet them halfway where you can. And also empathy is about being honest and being transparent and also educating them on what you can and can't do and why you can and can't do it. And that I think is where empathy comes in. And that is where I think I've seen organizations get it wrong because they're fearful to have the tough conversation versus I'd rather just be honest. And if they make the decision to leave, then that's okay.
Nope. It aligns with one of our core values, which is to be real. So that's what I keep hearing. I'm just like,
Well, exactly. Like
yeah.
you could teach people a lot, like, hey, Borzou, let me tell you why I can't give you that $20,000 raise. First of all, I can't afford it. Here's what I can do, but here's why I can't. Like, we don't compare ourselves to Google because we are a 200-person startup, right? And so this is how we look at compensation. These are the sources that I use. This is how I think about our comp bands. This is what I measure that against. This is what I compare us against. You'll notice I don't use data from a Google or an Amazon because we're not the same company. We don't, and yeah, we might have to go after similar talent, but like we can only do what we can afford. And the reason also why is I'm trying to be equitable. You want diversity, equity, inclusion. Do you know what that means? That means that I have to have I have a policy, and this is what it means. And I can't
There's a
give
lot
you
of
something so about that right now. Oh, I know, but I refuse to be quiet about that because I
Yeah.
think that people are getting it wrong. I think that people think DE&I is some big thing that has to sit outside of. No, DE&I should be like a part of like just how you look at your business, how you make decisions. Like, what's wrong with being equitable in every decision you choose to make, whether it's in HR or it's in marketing or it's in finance? Like, it's just about being fair and
Yeah,
equitable.
and this
Like,
narrative that like diversity has less qualified people getting jobs is just insanity, right? It's exactly the opposite. It's like
true.
giving the opportunity to the best people who wouldn't have gotten it otherwise.
And I've always said this to the organization look, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity. Everyone's got a fair shake. The way that our recruitment process is set up is such a way that when I look at top of funnel, it's getting information and accessible to a lot of different groups of people so that I have the best diverse like influx at the top of funnel, right? That's where it makes the most sense. And then how it goes through that funnel down to the process, right? Then it starts to get more narrow as you're interacting with people inside of my organization. That's part of what I have to control. I have to mitigate that bias every step of the way. But that's part of that. That's not a separate DE&I team that should be doing that. That's just a lens in which I look at how I build process. And my point is that it doesn't need to be this separate thing. It's got to be how you look at everything in your organization to be equitable and inclusive, and get the most diverse influx of, people or people's opinions if it's people that sit inside of my organization. That's what that's about. But that's culture. That's what you got to create that environment by process, by policies, by standing 10 toes down. Like, this is my policy. I'm not going to make the exception. And here's why I'm not going to make that's culture. Because it's governing the way that I make decisions in an
So
equitable
it's
and
not pizza
inclusive way.
parties.
It's it's not
The pizza party's already
it's
here,
not
yeah.
I forget where. It was like a tech company that I inevitably did work out for a short amount of time that were like, yeah, we have like espressos and stuff on top. We've got kombucha in the office. I'm like, first, I don't even drink kombucha. And like, we've got all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm a remote worker. I'm only in your office once a quarter. I don't give a shit what you have in your office. I care about how people respect me and how people respect each other. And am I going to have the autonomy to make the decisions that I need to do what I know we need to do to build the right culture here? That's what I care about. Unfortunately, that is not what everybody cares about, but that is all 100%
All
not
right,
culture.
everyone, unfortunately, we're going to have to call it for the day. We are out of time. Sarika, you were unbelievable, as always. I can say with a...
I don't know if I got to everything you wanted to.
I was about to say, I can say with a
Yeah.
reasonable amount of confidence, we're going to have you back on pretty soon.
Yeah, very
We could do a part two.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.